Every legend hides a truth. Every myth whispers a warning. Welcome to the Mythic Hour, where the forgotten gods and cursed stories return to life. There are stories that move through the veins of history like poison. They do not belong to one culture or one land, but slip from people to people, reshaped and whispered in the dark. Lilith is such a story. Her name has shifted across tongues, Lilith, but always the shape is the same. A shadow with the face of a woman, the talons of a beast, and hunger that no prayer can satisfy. Before she was a demon, she was a presence. The ancients of Mesopotamia knew her as something that crept into homes at night. They scratched her likeness on clay tablets, wings, claws, serpents curling at her feet, an image of something primal, feared yet familiar. When infants sickened, when mothers bled out in childbirth, when men felt a choking weight pressing on their chest at midnight, they whispered her name. She was the thing in the threshold, the unseen intruder who fed not on food, but on blood, on breath, on innocence itself. The Hebrews would later weave her into a myth more terrifying still. She was not simply a demon of the wilderness. She was the first woman, created from the same dust as Adam, equal in flesh and bone. But her refusal to bow, her hunger for freedom, turned paradise into a graveyard. This is not just a story of rebellion. It is a horror tale, one that drips with blood, bone, and the cold silence of abandoned cradles. But beneath the gore lies a darker symbolism, one that reveals why she has endured for millennia. For Lilith is not merely a monster. She is a mirror, and the reflection she casts is far more terrifying than her fangs. The garden was not always serene. Beneath the perfume of flowers and the songs of birds, there lingered a silence, the kind that creeps in just before a scream. Adam walked among the trees with ease, his every need met by the hand of God. Yet when the dusk stretched long and shadows slid between the branches, he felt a gnawing loneliness, a hollow ache even paradise could not fill. And so she was made. Not from a rib as the later woman would be, but from the same soil that birthed Adam himself. Her body rose from the earth in the night, flesh woven with the scent of damp clay, eyes burning with a strange fire. She breathed, and the air itself recoiled. When she looked at Adam, there was no subservience in her gaze, no softness, only recognition. They were alike, equal, matched not only in form but in will. For a time, there was peace. They walked side by side, two figures in a garden untouched by time. But peace is fragile when one refuses to bend. It began with whispers. Adam's voice, gentle at first, grew sharp with demand. "Lie beneath me," he said when desire stirred. His words were not request but command. Lilith's laughter was low, dark as the rustling of leaves at midnight. "We are the same. Why should I lie beneath you?" In that moment, something shifted. The air grew colder, the flowers seemed to wilt. Adam's pride turned to fury, his pleas to threats. But Lilith would not bow. "Then I will not stay," she hissed, her voice splitting the silence like a blade. And she spoke the forbidden name, the one even angels feared to utter. With it she tore herself from paradise. Wings of shadow unfurled from her back, not granted by God but conjured from rage, and she rose into the night sky like smoke escaping a fire. Adam called out, his voice echoing in the trees. But it was not God who answered first, it was the darkness itself. Lilith flew to the desolate places, where the wind howled and the sand cut like knives. There she became something other than human, other than divine. She mated with demons, drank the blood of beasts, and her womb swelled with 1,000 howling children, creatures born not of Eden, but of the abyss. But the story does not end with her departure. For Lilith is never content with exile. Paradise had rejected her, and so she made herself its shadow. She would return not in the day, but in the hours when the garden lay still, when sleep pressed heavy on Adam's chest. She would crouch over him, her hair brushing his face like cobwebs, her breath filling his lungs. And in the night, when the first children were born of Adam and the second woman, Eve, Lilith crept back once more, her talons poised above the cradles. For she had vowed, "If I am denied the joy of my own children, then no child shall thrive in peace." From that vow came the nightmares, Infants wasted away, their breath stolen in silence. Mothers wept milk and blood, their arms empty by dawn. Men dreamed of a woman straddling them in the night, her eyes glinting like black mirrors, and woke gasping, drained, unable to speak her name. And so Lilith became the first horror, the terror in the cradle, the midnight strangler, the bride of shadows. But Eden's story was only the beginning. Lilith did not vanish when she left Eden. She lingered. She multiplied. She became a shadow stitched into the fabric of human fear. In the deserts of Mesopotamia, long before her name reached Hebrew tongues, she was called Lilith. Her likeness appeared on clay tablets carved with desperate hands, half woman, half beast, with birds' talons for feet, wings outstretched, and owls flanking her sides. Those who etched her image did so not to worship, but to contain. For Lilith thrived on thresholds, the border between safety and danger, between the living and the dead, between the first breath of a child and its last. The Akkadians spoke of nights when infants wailed until their throats bled. Mothers swore they saw a shadow perched upon the rafters, hair writhing like snakes, teeth flashing white in the moonlight. They whispered prayers, burned incense, and clutched amulets etched with her banishment. Yet still she came, slipping through cracks like smoke. In one tablet, an exorcist wrote of her hunger. She will not eat grain. She will not drink water. Her food is the blood of men, her drink the marrow of children. Even the gods grew wary of her. Lamashtu, a sister demon often confused with Lilith, was said to crawl into homes at night and strangle infants in their sleep. Mothers hung charms around their newborns, amulets bearing the fierce lion-headed god Pazuzu, not because they loved him, but because even a monster might keep a greater monster at bay. Imagine the terror, to beg one demon for protection against another, knowing both thirsted for blood. When Lilith's name slithered into Hebrew stories, her shape grew sharper, crueler. No longer just a desert wraith, she was the first wife of Adam, cursed for defiance. Rabbis wrote of her pacts with Samuel, the angel of death, her brood of demons stretching across the earth like a plague. By then, she had already become the explanation for every crib death, every miscarriage, every fever that struck a child in the night. In Jewish homes, mothers placed protective plaques above their beds, inscribed with the names of angels, Sinoi, Sansonoi, and Samangeloth. These celestial guardians were said to chase Lilith away, to remind her of the oath she had once been tricked into swearing, that where these names were displayed, she would do no harm. Yet fear persisted. The plaques were not symbols of faith, but of desperation. For what good are angels, when the terror slips beneath the doorframe like a draft? And so Lilith fed. On the loneliness of barren women. On the grief of parents who woke to silence where a cry should have been. On the restless lust of men who dreamed of dark-haired women in the night, and awoke shamed, trembling, but unable to resist longing for the dream again. In every land, she adapted, reshaped but never forgotten. The Greeks called her Lamia, a queen cursed to devour children after Hera stole her own. The Arabs told of the ghouls, desert women who lured travelers with beauty before revealing their gnashing teeth. Each was Lilith by another name, her shadow lengthening across continents, feeding on human dread. For she is more than myth. She is an archetype of horror, death in childbirth, loss of innocence, the unexplainable weight pressing on your chest in the dark. She is the cry you hear in the desert when the wind is still. She is the empty cradle. Lilith had left Eden, but she never left us. The Middle Ages were an age of fear. Plagues crawled through villages, famine hollowed out the strong, and death slept in every bed. Yet of all terrors, none chilled the bones like the visitations of the night. Men whispered of a woman who came while they dreamed. She was beautiful, unbearably so, her hair long and black as midnight, her skin pale as the moon. She slid into their chambers without sound, straddled their bodies with the weight of a corpse, and pressed her lips to theirs. Some swore she kissed like fire, others like ice. Always, the breath was stolen. Always, the man woke trembling, drenched in sweat, drained as though his very seed had been ripped from him. This was the succubus. And though the church gave her a new name, the shadow behind her face was the same. It was Lilith. Priests declared she was the consort of Satan, the mother of demons. Her children, they said, were the incubi, male demons who lay with women in the night, planting monstrous seed in their wombs. When women gave birth to deformed children, or when pregnancies ended in blood, villagers whispered that Lilith's brood had taken root. She was blamed for lust too. A man who strayed from his wife's bed, who confessed to dreams of forbidden flesh, did not bear the guilt alone. No, he had been tempted by Lilith, the harlot of shadows. His sin was not his own, but hers. She had made him fall. Witch hunters soon found her in other guises. Women accused of witchcraft were said to suckle familiars, cats, owls, or serpents, all creatures tied to Lilith. Midwives, those who understood the secrets of childbirth, were burned alive because their knowledge was mistaken for pacts with her. After all, who but Lilith would know the mysteries of birth, and who but her would twist them into curses? The bedtime lullabies carried her name, too. Mothers sang to their children not just to soothe, but to warn. Sleep, little one, or Lilith will come. Imagine the cruelty of it, rocking an infant in your arms, whispering the promise of safety while invoking the very demon who might steal it. But fear is not rational. Fear teaches through terror. And so Lilith sat at the edge of every bed. In the heavy silence after the candle was snuffed. In the dream where a face too beautiful leaned close. In the gasp of the sleeper who could not move, pinned beneath an unseen weight. Even now, modern science calls it sleep paralysis. The old ones had another word, Lilith. But the horror does not end with men dreaming of her touch or women accused of her power. Lilith's vengeance is always sharpest where innocence lies. Cradle deaths multiplied in those centuries of ignorance, and each child found blue and breathless was said to be another soul devoured by her talons. Amulets were hung, prayers were said, but they all carried the same message: we are helpless against her. For Lilith cannot be killed. She is not flesh. She is hunger, absence, the emptiness that comes when the world takes what you love most. And such things cannot be destroyed. They endure. They change form. She survived the witches' pyres. She survived the prayers. She even survived being forgotten, for when her name slipped from the lips of the devout, her shadow found other places to nest. The terror of Lilith was never meant for one age. It was meant for all. The witch hunters are gone. The clay tablets are broken. The prayers etched in amulets lie forgotten in museum glass. And yet Lilith is still here. She no longer needs the desert winds or candlelit cradles to stalk her prey. She has learned to live in the corners of cities, in the flicker of television static, in the restless glow of the phone by your bed. Her methods have adapted, but the fear is the same. Ask around, and you'll hear the stories. A young man in New York claims he woke to see a woman at the foot of his bed. She was stunning, long hair cascading over bare shoulders, her eyes reflecting the streetlight like black water. He thought he was dreaming, until she leaned forward and pressed her hands against his chest. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. His lungs felt as though they were collapsing, his heartbeat slowing until the world was almost silent. When he finally blinked and she vanished, he swore he smelled earth, wet, heavy, like freshly dug soil. In Sao Paulo, a mother confessed on a radio call-in show that her baby woke screaming at exactly the same time every night, 3:07 a.m. She said she once walked into the nursery and found the window open, the curtains billowing inward though the night was still. The baby's cradle was empty. She searched frantically, only to find the child lying cold on the floorboards, as if carefully placed there. The doctors found no cause. But the grandmother muttered one name, trembling, Lilith. Even in rural villages where the old stories are fading, people know. In Eastern Europe, she's the night hag, crouching on the sleeper's chest. In the Middle East, she's still the desert wraith, her hair catching men's eyes in lonely places. In America, she hides behind the language of paranormal encounters, the woman in the mirror, the faceless bride, the seductive phantom who drains life from her lovers. Different masks. Same hunger. And what of the modern lullabies? They're not sung anymore, but the warnings linger in other forms. Parents still say, don't stay out too late. Don't talk to strangers. Don't go with women who call to you from the dark. They don't say Lilith's name, but the fear is hers. Some paranormal researchers have even noted the pattern. Stories of succubi, sleep paralysis demons, and mysterious deaths in infancy all echo the same shape. Always female. Always nocturnal. Always hungry. The psychologists offer explanations: repressed desire, sleep disorders, grief projected onto myth. But even they cannot explain the consistency, the way people across continents and centuries describe the same figure, the same suffocating weight, the same dark-eyed woman leaning close in the night. It is as though Lilith is not a demon you can exorcise, but a terror woven into the human mind itself. And perhaps that is the truest horror of all. Stories that survive this long do not survive by chance. Lilith has been feared for millennia, but fear is never just about the monster. It is about what the monster means. When the rabbis of old wrote Lilith into the margins of Scripture, they gave her more than wings and claws. They gave her rebellion. Unlike Eve, who was made from Adam's rib to walk beside him, Lilith was made from the same clay. She was equal, bone for bone, breath for breath. Yet when she refused to submit, her equality became monstrous. The horror of Lilith was never just that she strangled infants or seduced men in their sleep. It was that she said no. No to submission. No to silence. No to lying beneath Adam. For patriarchal societies, this was the ultimate terror, a woman who would not obey. And so they turned her into a demon, the first femme fatale, the eternal threat. They told the story over and over, embedding it into culture like a curse. If women defy, if they claim their power, chaos will follow. Children will die. Men will fall. The world itself will unravel. Lilith became the embodiment of male fear, not just of death, but of desire. She was blamed for nocturnal emissions, for adultery, for lust that could not be controlled. Men dreamed of her and awoke in shame, and rather than confess their weakness, they gave the weakness a name, Lilith. She became the excuse, the scapegoat, the shadow that let them keep their pride intact. For women, Lilith was the terror of childbirth, an experience already teetering on the edge of death. In ancient times, 1 in 3 mothers did not survive labor. To lose a child was almost expected. How much easier it was to imagine a demon lurking in the dark than to face the unbearable randomness of life. Lilith was grief given shape, sorrow sharpened into talons. But she was also something else, something more dangerous to the structures of power. In her defiance, some saw not just a monster, but a figure of freedom. The rabbis tried to bury that part of the story, yet it glimmers still in the oldest texts. Lilith choosing exile over submission. Lilith speaking the forbidden name of God and flying away, untethered, unbeholden. What is more terrifying than a woman who does not need you? Even today, her image stirs unease. Feminists have reclaimed her as a symbol of autonomy, painting her not as a child killer but as the first woman to say, enough. Artists cast her as beautiful, untamed, dangerous only to those who would cage her. Yet the old horror lingers. Call her freedom, call her equality, call her rage, whatever the name, she still unsettles. For Lilith is not just myth. She is archetype. She is the place where desire and fear meet, where love twists into hunger, where life brushes against death. She is the warning that women who refuse to bow will be demonized, turned into nightmares to keep others in line. And here is the terrifying truth. Lilith has endured because she is needed. Needed as a scapegoat. Needed as a warning. Needed as a mirror. When you dream of her, dark hair brushing your skin, eyes glittering in the dark, ask yourself, is it really Lilith you fear, or the truths she forces you to face? Lilith is older than memory. Older than the garden, older than scripture. She slips like smoke through every culture, wearing different names but carrying the same hunger. What began as a whisper of desert winds became a shadow crouched in cradles, a succubus straddling men, a witch with serpents at her feet. In every age, she wore the fears of the people who named her. She was grief, lust, rebellion, chaos. She was whatever they dreaded most, given flesh so that they might point to it, curse it, and tell themselves the terror was not inside them. But here lies the truth, the most terrifying of all. Lilith has never truly been outside of us. She is not only a demon lurking in the rafters. She is the embodiment of what humanity represses. The pain of mothers who lost children and had no answers. The shame of men whose desire outweighed their virtue. The dread of societies built on control, facing the defiance of those who will not submit. Lilith survives because these things survive. As long as children die before their time, as long as lust consumes the pious, as long as voices rise against chains, her shadow remains. And perhaps that is why no charm has ever destroyed her, no prayer silenced her, no age forgotten her. She cannot be banished because she is not merely myth. She is reflection. Stand before a mirror at night, the candles guttering low. Look closely into your own eyes, and you may catch the flicker of her shape behind you. Not because she is truly there, but because she always has been, woven into your blood, your fears, your desires. The cradle that lies empty. The dream that leaves you trembling. The whisper that says no. That is Lilith. And that is why she will never die. Which myth should I cover next? Egyptian curses or Japanese yokai? If the myths still haunt you, subscribe for more tales that were never meant to be forgotten.